This is it. This is where I'm going to go over the path tool as it's applied to colorizing a photo here. So I'm in paths and I'm going to, first of all, I'm going to make sure, because you might not be at this stage here, you might be starting out, I'm going to make sure we're in RGB mode. So if I go into mode, because you're colorizing a black and white photo, so you need to go from grayscale to RGB. If RGB is not highlighted, some people have multi-channel highlighted for the way they're working, just make it grayscale and then make it RGB. So, image mode, grayscale, image mode, RGB, or any way you can get to RGB, but that's what I saw on people's screens. Okay, so now I'm going to start a new path, and I'm going to call this one mouth, and I'll do the mouth, and then I'll do the shirt, I guess. So click on here. I'm going to go into the pen tool, and not much to work on here, but there's a little bit. Click and drag, click and drag, click and drag, and just sort of click to make a corner, and then I think it's going to go down this far, click and drag, and then I could probably get away with closing it here. Okay, so the important thing when making these is not to try to make them perfect, to make them enclosed. See, when my cursor, I'll do that again. See, when my pen goes over the last one, I get that little circle in the lower right. That means it's ready to close it. Now I can make it any shape I want. So you see I have this little delete here, so I can delete paths or I can add them when I have the plus there. I can also access the plus and the minus here. I can also change paths from a corner to a curve to a point, or a corner, to a curve, just by clicking and dragging. So I can delete points, add points, and change them, change their characteristic. Okay, so this is not much to do here. Make sure you pay attention to which one of these you're in. If you're in the wrong cursor, it's super confusing. So you want to be in direct selection tool in order to really work on those handles. So first you collect the dot, and then the what I like to call butterfly handles appear, and I can sort of move the dot around, or I can change the characteristic and the placement. Okay, so there might be more to do on the next one, but there's really just not that much to do here. So I'm going to turn it into a selection, and I'm also going to load it here as a selection just to be helpful in case it's, did I say load? I meant save. Save it as a selection and call it mouth in case I need it in that format later. And then I'm going to give it a feather. So always I give it a 2 feather, and then I go into my image adjust and curves, or Command M. And I'm also not going to do much here because I don't really want this guy to have really ruby lips. I just want to make a slight distinction from what else I'm going to do. Command H, and I might even zoom out. So there really is a distinction, and I've done almost nothing. I'm going to do a little more, and I could try a little bit of magenta, and that's totally fine, but less is more, and say okay. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the shirt, and so I'll just kind of quickly go over that for you, where I will grab a new path so I don't put it on my earlier path, and call it shirt, and click and drag. Less is more. If you're making a lot of points, there's something wrong. I guess this will be 2 paths. And I enclose it, and then I can fix it. First, I'm going to make this one because I want them on the same path. And I always have my one hand on my undo, Command Z, in case I do something I don't like. But I can't go back and fix it until I enclose the path. And so now I get that little circle, and I click and drag because I want a curve there, and it's fine. And so I'll go into my arrow tool and clean it up. And when I move this, it automatically affects the one next to it. And when I move this, it automatically affects this one. And that's okay. That's how they work. And let's look at this. This has got some curves in it, not. So I could add, if I really want to get this, I could add a point. Just so it's super important to really zoom in all the time and get into the habit of zooming in. So you see how I'm making this part here look the way it should, and it's totally messing up this. So I just bring this down shorter, and I'm going to bring this down lower and longer, and then I need to bring this down. So it's super back and forth. And it super messes up with this, messes up this one. And people can get really frustrated because it can really make this go out of whack. And that's just sort of the patient nature of what we're working with. There's some forgiveness here in the shadows, so I don't have to be super precise there. I'm not going to be able to get that without adding a point. Back and forth. And like I said, these are the tools you learn in a lot of other imaging software. We just learn it in Photoshop, so we don't have to switch tools and learn it. And because it's really handy for creating this kind of selection. Okay, so I can take this and turn it into a selection. Might as well just save it as a selection, just in case. And then this is a little more fun. After I feather it, go into curves, and I think I remember looking, he has a super bright blue, purpley neon kind of thing. So add a little bit of magenta and good to go. And that looks pretty good. I see a little bit of highlight there that might not be natural. And then, kind of the last thing is we did the eyes, we subtracted the eyes, but we didn't add any color. So that magic wand is working pretty well, just to get a little bit in there. And I think that's good. I'm going to subtract that. What's not the pupil, I'm not going to make a color. And Maybe a better way of doing this, I should show you the better way, is to use the lasso for these like quick and dirty things. Actually, I have it on plus now, so I can just sort of add. I'm holding down shift and drawing with the lasso, and I hold down option and I can take away. And it's a super forgiving medium, and zoom out, and I can create, modify, and feather to, and then I'm Command H to hide the selection, but it's there. And I'm going to make it like a gray blue so that it's really just kind of darkish colored. Nope, I'm going to make it kind of brown. That's fine, it looks good. It's too brown, too saturated. What I'm looking for is a little bit of depth and darkness, and I can get that from RGB completely, so I can grab the white line and just darken the whole thing. A little bit from my less is more. Okay, and so this is colorizing a black and white photo, and you can see it has this kind of retro style using curves. So now you know paths and you know curves very well. Thanks.